Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Here we are talking with Eric Draitser in New York City. And Eric, I think in many ways, this, from the point of view of the wreckers, this can be scored as a success. In other words, their goal is always to tire you out, to demoralize you, to disperse you, and then send you home, except maybe for a minority that's ready for terrorism or something like this. This is what community organizing does over years, and in this case, it's more concentrated, it's more condensed. It happens over weeks, months, rather than years, but the effect ultimately may be the same.
I agree with that, and I will add that there's another tactic of destruction here, and this is related directly to the Finance Committee. So I have it from multiple sources that there's anywhere between $250,000 and $300,000 sitting in funds that have been quote-unquote donated to Occupy Wall Street. And these funds are controlled by the Finance Committee. Now, the people who sit on the Finance Committee, from all indications, and I can't say this from firsthand experience, but from people that I've talked to, from all indications, the people on the Finance Committee are holding this money in their clutches, and they're not letting any of it go. The people I know who have been there since the beginning, especially who work with the information groups, have told me that none of this money is being spent, that the money is being held on to, and it's not even being released to the other members of Occupy Wall Street to even debate what to do with this money. Now, there's two things to say about that. Number one is, who exactly are the people who have control over the money, this power of the purse within Occupy Wall Street? And the second thing is, what exactly do they intend to spend this money on? Because from the people that I've talked to have told me that their main concern is that it's going to get cold, the park is going to clear out, and these people are going to take the money, literally take the money from themselves, or at the very least skim a large money off the top. Now, I spoke to a couple of different people, and I had suggested possibilities of things that they could actually do with this money because, again, they don't need the money to take care of themselves. They're taking care of themselves just fine. So why don't they start a fund for unemployed people to help people maybe with basic, electricity bills or something like that? In other words, buying time in the media saying that you're actually doing something productive for people who need your help. Maybe you could spend the money to rent out, an auditorium or to rent out an assembly space where you can have a meeting with actual microphones and invite political leaders and such to address the crowd instead of having to use this godforsaken notion of the people's mic. Why don't you take some of the money and pay for, purchase advertising in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal?
Put a programmatic manifesto in there and tell the world what you stand for.
Exactly. Again, these are all productive things that could be done with this money. If you're talking about upwards of $300,000, this is not a small sum of money. You could use this money to do something actually productive instead of, spending it on organic tea to distribute to the people at the park.
They could fund a candidate to challenge Obama in New Hampshire.
Right, exactly.
Pick somebody from their own ranks and get him or her on the ballot in New Hampshire. It can be done.
But see, the problem with that is that in order to do something like that, you have to have an organized political force within the Occupy Wall Street movement. And this is something that the wreckers and the saboteurs have done everything to prevent from happening. And this is something that I was trying to organize for people down there. I had said, if, you have mentioned, you meaning the people who I've spoken to within Occupy Wall Street, have mentioned that they want the reinstatement of Glass-Steagall. Well, I got an answer for you. Marcy Kaptur has House Bill 1489 suggesting exactly that on the floor of Congress. Why are you not reaching out to Marcy Kaptur, getting her down there to speak to the crowd, to get her at the front of a march? Why are you not reaching out to Peter DeFazio and Harkin on their bill to tax derivatives? Why are you not including the nurses union within a political force coming out of the Occupy Wall Street movement? The answer, and this is again my opinion here, but the answer is because this is precisely what they will not allow to happen. Because if you organize a political force within Occupy Wall Street, then you stand for something. And as soon as you stand for something, this is no longer a movement of dupes and useful idiots and vacuous young people. Instead, it becomes a movement of real people with a real program. The other 2 points that I want to make before time runs out, the Occupy Wall Street has now gotten 501c3 status. This is tax-exempt status. This is a foundation tactic. This is a tactic that I think has been implanted
by... It has become a foundation, in effect.
Exactly, and this is a tactic that is put out there by the foundations, And I think this is a way of funneling money to them without being taxed on it. And I think this is also a way for them to essentially establish themselves as a foundation under the umbrella of other foundations. But I think that people can draw their own conclusions from this. And
listen, Eric, if it is a 501c3, then the names have got to be on the public record somewhere, and that would reveal who the hierarchy really is.
This is something that would need to look into, and perhaps maybe I can look into that this week and get back to you on that one. The last point that I wanted to make, and this is the episode with Lewis down in Atlanta. I've spoken to numerous people at Occupy Wall Street, and this will give you an idea of their mentality. I said, this was a genuine civil rights leader who wanted to address the group there, and he was essentially barred from speaking. And they backpedaled on this, saying, no, he wasn't barred from speaking. It's just that he thought that he was above the rules, above the process. And my response to that was, excuse me, he is above your rules and above this process. This is a genuine civil rights hero who wanted to address the crowd. Let the rules be damned. Let the process be damned. You need people like this to come and speak to give the movement some kind of legitimacy. Because otherwise, if you don't have that, then you're a bunch of middle class to upper middle class white yuppie children who have no real sway with the general public and have no real populist sentiment. But again, they don't want to hear this. They have no awareness of the fact that Occupy Wall Street and the Occupy movements have taken a position on the national political stage, and that when you've taken a position on the national stage, you have to play the game of politics. Your rules cause secondary. The primary thing is don't allow yourselves to be interpreted by the general public as some kind of idiotic movement that has no real clarity and no real concept of itself. And this is precisely what happens when you look at somebody like Lewis being shouted down in Atlanta. What message does that send to black Americans? That sends the message that you've got no place within the Occupy movement. This is a movement of young bourgeois liberals, and if you're black, then you either fall in line or you need to find yourself another venue. And this is the idea.
Stupidity. Let me just ask you, though, you've been holding teach-ins. Are you going to keep that up next week?
Yes, we'll be having another teach-in next week. This week we did foundations and how they help to shape public opinion as a power projection of Wall Street. Next week we'll be working on the connection between Wall Street and the march towards imperialism, which anybody who's turned on their TV today and seeing this absolutely barbaric fiasco with Gaddafi, which I'm sure you're talking about on the show. This is a prime example of what happens when Wall Street's Western Anglo-American imperialism marches throughout the world. Let's not forget the green flag of the Jamahiriya stands for more than just the People's Revolution in Libya. Today and from now on, the green flag represents the resistance to Western imperialism. And this is how it will be taken. The green flag is more than the Jamahiriya. It is resistance to Western imperialism, and it is resistance to Western financial imperialism. If you look at the Al Arabiya news sources of yesterday, they have said that the appearance is now that the IMF and the World Bank are coming back to Libya. Yay, hooray, let's all cheer for the IMF and the World Bank finally reemerging in Libya after the tyrannical rule.
I wonder what the General Assembly down there says about the killing of Gaddafi. Anyway,
they were conspicuously silent.
6:30 next Thursday at 56 Walker Street. 6:30 p.m. this coming Thursday, 56 Walker Street, Tribeca below Canal Street. Please go ahead.
Exactly.
A couple of seconds left.
Exactly. And again, the more people we come, the more we will be able to do this. We're putting together a circuit of these teach-ins to help to educate people, to expose Obama, to expose Wall Street, the mechanisms of control. People can keep up with me at Stop Imperialism on Twitter, and Stop Imperialism also at Let's Teach In. Let's Teach In to follow news on the teach-ins.
Okay, thanks, Eric. See you next week. And we'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.